Okay, we'll begin. Yom Beis Rosh Hashanah Tavshin Chavav. Min Hameitzar Karosika Anoni B'Merchav Kosek. This is capital Kuf Yud Ches. It's from Kuf Yud Ches, and it's from the Psukim that we say before Tkei Shofar. Out of the straits I call upon Hashem. Answer me. He answers me with the broadness of Hashem. U'medaik Bezechak Marvacham Yadmur. So the Frierdiker Rebbe asks, "Do we have Maschman Hameitzar the Shnas Tavshin Tes in his Maimer of on this posuk of Tavshin Tes?" He asks as follows: "The Tzarich Lov in Oimrei Loshen Korosi." We have to understand what it says here that I call upon God. Now, what is meant by calling? Like someone who calls to his friend. Shukriya Bilvad. It's casual. It's a call. Casual meaning to say it's nothing profound, not coming from a very deep place. So the question therefore is, given since we're calling from the straits, from a condition of restriction, from the straight Shavasi, I called for salvation. I appealed to Akti, I cried. Akti. Tzayka is a cry, and so is a Zayka. Al derech Masha Kosov, he brings the pasuk, the Frierdiker Rebbe, v'yitzako l'lavaya v'atal shavosa. Referring to Golus Mitzrayim, they called out to Hashem, and this supplication ascended. Now, order 3, he says, that's how it is in the Maimer. If you look in the pasuk, he's obviously referring to, it's Vayizako with a Zayin, not a Tzaddik. Vayizako v'atal shavosam bedolikim. And then our astute editors, maybe they ever wrote this, I don't know. They're telling us that the Ramban on the pasuk, on this very pasuk where it says Vayizaku, in his commentary he quotes it as Vayitzaku, the tzaddik. So it's interesting to note the Frierdiker Rebbe, this exchange of Zion and tzaddik, and the Ramban too. He's not explaining it; he's pointing it out. So befrat, so the question is, min hametzar karosi? No, min hametzar shavosi, zoakti, zoakti. It's a cry that comes from the depth, from pain, from constraint, not just a casual call. Ubefrat, the question becomes stronger considering sheposik zeh me'apsukim she'omrim b'Rosh Hashanah. It's a kasha of the pasuk in general, period. Min hametzar karosi, whatever the person's meitzar is. But the question is even more so that this pasuk is chosen to say, kodim tkiya shofar, before shofar blowing, la'achrei achon adi klolos aved the chedesh elul, after having gone through the general aved of the month of Elul, kodel gam yemei slichas, including slichas. This year is the greatest number of days. And then Erev Rosh Hashanah, which is a unique Avodah, and then Leil Rosh Hashanah. Why does he single out Erev Rosh Hashanah, Leil Rosh Hashanah? Because Erev Rosh Hashanah, Leil Rosh Hashanah, that's the Durtamita de Zoh, that's the Stalkos, the removal. Hashem removes his desire for creation. It starts Erev Rosh Hashanah, and that's Leil, the Avodah of Leil Rosh Hashanah. Ad la boikid Rosh Hashanah Tkei Shofar, and then there's the whole avodah of Rosh Hashanah in the morning before blowing shofar is achana, and it's integral to the whole being mamshich, touching Hashem and drawing down a new level of tainug of God's desire for creation, for the whole purpose of creation. So it's a gewaltige avodah. Rosh Hashanah. I mean, Leil Rosh Hashanah, as we all know, it's the one time that Chassidim are meidich, even an average Chassid, is meidich in Tfilas Hamida, Leil Rosh Hashanah. I remember as a child, maybe I say that didn't daven b'avodah b'chlal. So I remember as a child, it was Rosh Hashanah at night, and we'd go, guys go over after Friday night or Yom Tov night to say, Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tov. I was a kid, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, Rosh Hashanah night. Yeah, then I subsequently learned that Rosh Hashanah at night, Chassidim HaMeirich, in Tfilas Hamida, it's the whole Avodah there, where it's laid out, the Simloich, to draw and reveal Hashem's sovereignty on the, first and foremost, as we learned in the previous Maamar, on ourselves personally, and then the world. So how is it possible? After all of this Avodah, so his avoiding now the climactic moment just before the sounding of the shofar, the whole connection, the coronation, the marriage, is b'eifin shel kriya bilvad. It's a call. It's not so much casual, but familiar. It doesn't appear that's coming from a very deep place. So that's the question he asks, where the Frierdiker Rebbe and his Maamar Tavshin Tes. V'yesh lo yisef ol ha'daik b'zeh gam l'idar gisen. The Rebbe says we're going to add and ask on the other hand. What's the other hand? Another shaila. Ma'al emri min ha'mitzar. Now he's in a state of constraint after all this. After the whole avodah of Chedesh Elul, Yemei Yaslichas, and then Rosh Hashanah, Lil Rosh Hashanah. He repeats it again. He doesn't just say after all the avodah, etc. The Rebbe spells it out because he's invoking the Inyan and he's bringing it home to us. So the whole avodah of Elul, Slichas Ev, Rosh Hashanah, Lil Rosh Hashanah, Adlo Boker, Rosh Hashanah Lifnei Kiyashma, and now he's already gone. He's already effected the avodah of Rosh Hashanah in the morning. It's also by Chassidim, even every Chassidim gets up very early and he learns obviously mikveh. But then Limud Chassidus Barichos, when he gave the Inyan of Tkiyah Shofar. So h'tשכ. So how is it possible? That a Yid should find himself in a state of constraint and limit after all of this avodah? That's the kasha the other way. The figure Rebbe's kasha is in the korosi, and Rebbe's kasha is on the Hameitzar. But Proteus Yosef made the question stronger, that contrast is to be noted. Proteus Yosef in the Yedua, more details, Chedesh Elul Me'irim, Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. In more detail, Chedesh Elul's revelation of the Eibishter's infinite compassion. Shegodla Malosam Beyosa, their virtue is extremely great. Achein Chayzeres. Chayzeres Reikem, Hashem promises Moshe Rabbeinu made a covenant with them that when evoked, they will never return empty-handed. You'll be matzliach. It's not just from God's perspective. It's not that just God forgives and we don't feel it. We're not affected. That already is something extraordinary. But certainly it affects as an effect on the person. Certainly, this extraordinary time causes a Jew to be aroused and awakened and inspired. Yud Gimel Mitzrachim Bila Maila, in addition to what we're just saying now, that he's in a state of inspiration as a result of this revelation that comes to him. Yesh Nagam Ba'is B'Nefesh Adam. There's his avodah. Shenasa de Pulosim Shalisol, that Yidden effect. Shetoikin B'Shoifa B'Meshach Kol Mechadish Elo. It's a minig that Yidden, that's born from Yidden, that they blow the shofar every day throughout the month of Elul. That is an effect. Yiddisabatur, like it says in the Tur. Sheskinu Chazal sheyitoikim b'shofar kol hachodesh. Chazal enacted it. It's not a chiv derabbanan. It's still a minig, but it's a high level minig that Yidden should blow the shofar the whole month. Why? Kedila Hazid is your soul. She asked tshuva to inspire, to warn, and inspire Yidden to do tshuva. Shenembarim yitaka shofar be'ir. If the shofar we blown in the city, and the pasuk goes into saying the people will not tremble, it's a rhetorical question, of course. Vam lo yechrodu. Dainish ki a shofar pel ba'odam yideh v'charodat ki a shofar affects, arouses when the Jew and affects yideh and awe v'charodat and trembling. Kisiyim ha'kosov, as this pasuk concludes, Vam lo yechrodu b'tmiyah, and the people will not tremble. Of course, it's impossible otherwise. Yesh lahisev, and the Rebbe adds she'inyan zeh, adding on the Tur. The Tur is halacha. She'inyan zeh ki ha-shofar pel is ba'adam yireh v'charoda. This that ki ha-shofar affects within a Jew awe of God, fear of God, and trembling. Halacha psuka b'toira. It's brought down not in the as a medrash, but in the Tur, which is halacha. Psuka means cut. There's no exception. She'i efshel is beifnach haklal. It can't be any other way at all. So Gewalt, what a Yid is experienced and has created. The halacha psuka is saying that through Shofar, even the light of the light, the least serious, the most dismissive of persons, is aroused. Kal shebakalim takes everything lightly. He too, v'alachas kam b'vakam mishu shaykh la'avodah, and much more so someone that shaykh to avodah. And the emes is that every Yid is shaykh on some level to avodah. Because every Jew wants to do what Hashem wants and wants to be close to God. So v'nimtza, because this shegam b'ishad erev reish chodesh elul, even someone till mamish erev reish chodesh elul b'matzav shel yisoidus, he's not inspired, goes along life his merry or not merry way. But hine b'shomet ki ha-shofar is chodesh elul ve'ela, by hearing ki ha-shofar reish chodesh and going forward, how do you misoide b'tnuah shel yideh v'charad? He is aroused with an expression of fear of God and trembling. V'ayzois, more. He's going to detail over the whole matzav now. From Rosh Chodesh Elul and forward, we say, B'chol yom mizmer, ha-mizmer David havaya oiri v'yishi. The mizmer composed by David HaMelech, that God is my light and my salvation. Hainu. Every Jew during this time is in a situation of godliness illuminates him. My light, the way that he should go. It's illuminated. There's a clarity. Where he was confused, or he justified himself. That's where the confusion comes from. The ruach shtus. So comes Elul, it's clear. The clouds open up. That's oidi. Yishi, my salvation. The Eibishter helps him. The path is clear, and he has this divine assistance. That's the gewaldige avodah of Elul. That shaykh to everyone, without exception. So after all of this, the Rebbe asks, Vadai, certainly should be called Echad v'Echad Mitzal Nimtze Kvar. Every Jew is already b'mayim the matzav. He's already in a situation. He's no longer in a constraint. He's expressive. His neshama is shining. He's not in a spiritual prison, which is what Meitzar means. The straits. If so, why? How is it? Then the psukim before Tkiyah Shofar, Rosh Hashanah, Oimre min ha'Mitzar dafke. That's the Rebbe's question. Yeah. So the figure Rebbe's question is on the Kriya. It's min ha'Mitzar. It's not a Kriya. It's a Shaiva. It's a Zaika. It's a Tzaika. The B'Shayla is min ha'Mitzar. Vos Mitzar. After all this, Oidi v'Yishi. Yes, the Vayz Epi Yamai Barazal. Aren't we fortunate that we're learning this now, and it's still early in Slicha? You got to speak very loud because
right. The Rebbe's take on the Rebbe's the other way around. The Idach Gisa
right
explains why it's karasi. Like
yeah,
right.
that's right. It's the Shaila Idach Gisa, which we therefore render as the first question. No question. Yeah, you're close. Yeah. But now we have to understand, answer the Rebbe's question. Yeah, good point. Yes, the Vayz Epi Yamai Barazal. So we'll explain this in light of what it says in Gemara. Drashon, the Gemara says, Kol Shana Sherosha B'tchilasa, any year that's poor at the outset, Mis Asheres becomes wealthy and rich, B'Seif at the end. And the Gemara derives this from the Pasuk. Hameitzar, the Pasuk says in Parshas Ek, we just read it, that the eyes of Hashem, it's talking about the eyes of Hashem on the Yisrael are Mereishis Hashana, from the beginning of the year, about Achar Hashana, until the end of the year. So before we go further, Pasha the Shail is, well, it means continuously. Beginning at the end of the year. And the Pasuk actually says Tomid. Tomid, Ein Hashem Alakecha, Mereishis Hashana, so you say continuously, you don't have to then say from beginning to the end. So here's the remez. The Reishis is the remez to Tishrei, that it's every year it's a reevaluation, and every year there's a new eye of God upon the land. That's one explanation. But here another explanation is the word the Reishis, so it's a remez to Tishrei, but also because it's missing an aleph. It spells the word Roshes, which means poor. The word Mereshis is missing an aleph. This is all the Gemara. Vad Achris. Now, Achris means like a future. So, Soifa sheyesh lo Achris. So, if it's a beginning, it's Reshis, it's poor, then there is a good future. It's Hasheres. Now, what does it mean, poor? What does it mean, poor? Pirish Rashi. What does it mean? Any year which is poor at the beginning doesn't mean chas v'sholem, lack of anything. Rather, here's the words of Rashi: Yisrael oisin atzmin deroshin b'Rosh Hashanah. He'd make themselves poor. The daber tachanunim b'tfilah, to speak words of supplication and prayer. This is all Rashi, as the pasuk says in Mishlei, tachanunim yidaber rosh. The poor speaks in a way of supplication and tachanton, supplicate. That's the Gemara. Now, introducing this Gemara will answer the above. How so? Admo Marash, and Rabbi Marash explains. But the Amaschel Tiku Dushnas Tofreish Chavches. In this Maimim Tofreish Chavches. Shezuhi amayla the tfilas oni. This is the mile of the poor man's prayer. As the pasuk says in Tilim, ze onikora v'Hashem shemeya. The poor see, the poor calls and God listens. Zeo gaming in the min hametzar, said Reb Marash. This is min hametzar. Shal derech. This is the meaning similar to what the Gemara says. Yisrael oisin atzman roshin. Yid make themselves poor. That and there's the mile in the tfilas oni. The dafka yedezer. It's dafka through the roshin, through this poorness to be explained. Nasa anoni b'merchavko. God answers me with the expansiveness of the divine, which is what the Gemara is saying. She's that's the achris. That the end is wealth and expansion. The end of it is that there is a future, there is expansion. Now the word achris is a little bit. That's a lashon pasuk. So in the pasuk it makes sense, beginning to the end of the year. But how does achris go on ashirus? Answer: the achris imakoyla begematri keser. Add it up. So keser 620. So if you add up the word achris, it's 619. And then there's in gematria, there's also one for the word itself, 620. What's keser? Shezel, ashirus b'shleima. This is the ultimate level of shleimus. Haino loira kashirus desvidas atiferes. Not only the richness of tiferes. Why is there richness there? Because the harmony, the fusion of chesed and gvura, in pashtus. Oh yeah, fil ashirus the svidas bina. Why is bina ashirus? Because bina develops. It's rich. Develops the idea. That's where the tainug emerges. No, we speak here pure keser. Keser, elagam ashirus the keser. What's the wealth of keser relative to the ashirus that is found in Ishtalshalus? It's bligvul. It's truly boundless. So that's what's meant. A year where there's the avodah of Roshin, Mireshis, then Misasheres, Besoifa, that is mamshech, the avodah of bittul is mamshech, keser, the bligvul, the true wealth, the riches, the boundlessness of Hashem. Now, the Rebbe's diak. I think this is the Rebbe's not from Reb Marash. V'hinei, but Pirish, Shana Shirosha, in explaining what the Gemara means by a year that's poor, paucity, poor. Medaik Rashi says in this precise choice of language, Sheisrael oisin atzman roshin. He didn't make themselves poor. We encountered this already in the Maamar recently, this idea. Who remembers? Oisin, not mamish, but they make themselves. Few Maamorim ago. Okay, homework. The whole arichas abir then. Similar to here. So they make themselves poor. He implies they're not really. They're not in a state of impoverishment. They make themselves poor. Because that's the avodah of bittul. Them is they're spiritually rich and wealthy and wonderful. But they make themselves poor. Now this needs to be understood. You are or you're not. Well, this is the pretense of humility. Nothing more obnoxious. Doesn't mean that. But let's read the words further. Now, having said what we just pointed out now, that not that they really are, you're rich, you're coming after this whole avodah, and Neshama is shining. You're a Jew on fire. We can explain similarly, this is going to be an answer to our question, we said, what kind of Mitzar? Because the truth is, and everything that the Rebbe spelled out. It's talking not of the matzah of Mitzar. Elosh, b'sadinyan abitl, oisin atzmaroshe. But then there's the unique avoid of bitl that didn't make themselves poor. Therefore, yeshna gamba in the minameitza. Not that this minameitza describes the emes, the matzav of the Jew now, as he's about to take the shofar to his lips and hear the. Actually, the mitzvah is not to blow, the mitzvah is to hear. He's about to hear shofar. No, it's the yesh. There's also the minameitza. You might want to give that answer. Omnam, however, be as a maspik. Can't say that. It's not sufficient. The given shavaydet zeichel is havaydet pnimis va'amitis. It's not that we make ourselves poor by some consideration. But since avoid has to be pnimius, it's got to be internalized, it's got to be true and sincere. This minameitz has to be lit up. Bemis is no longer that constraint. He's left that behind. I'm just going to add over here. Even as he says over here in this hava minute, we don't mean again chas v'sholem, as I just pointed out, just posturing as being humble. Fakvetch, again, that is, what's the word? It's an obnoxious, reprehensible. No, it's whatever it is. It's the union of a chatosi negdi somit. Not Rabbi and Tanya and Geras HaTshuva. He took this tshuva, but from the distance, the memory of his sin remains. Negdi means not right in front, but from the distance. Merochek. The whole being in the Geras HaTshuva, one explanation is, it's great for being humble. And it's great eitzah for accepting whatever happens. He's talking not there anymore. He's left it behind, but it's still, the memory of it still stirs him and invokes a sense of humility and bittul. That's maybe what he speaks of, but he's saying it can't be that either. That's in the distance. That's in the distance. Oisa atzmai, k'moshe b'mitzar. In the words of Rashi, oisin atzmarosh, and Elot can't be that. He's saying, min ha'mitzar korosiko, min ha'mitzar. Has to be away from pnimi v'amiti. It's obviously internalized and very personal now. He now, despite all of his avodah, which is he surely has it done, he's be'emes in a matzav of meitza. How could that be? They moving out. It's understood. Ich efsher as a possible. Right, we already followed. Yeah. Shachli klolas avodat chadish elo, the whole avodah at koden. Again, till koden t'ki'asheif mamish now, where he stands, he had dying. But ma'ami the matzah shameitza bam is not that it's distant and it's something that he considers. But he is in a ma'ami of meitza. Truthfully, how could that be? Which is why it must be that way. That's why he says ba'amitis ba'pnimis v'nameitza. How could this be? And then we're back to our question. So he's be'emes in a matzav of meitza. A complete contradiction. Be'emes, karosi. I mean, a meitza be'emes has to be, and yet karosi, start coming from the depth. It's something that's easy and almost casual. Kriya b'vada kol. The two don't. It's a figure that asks back to that question. How do you reconcile the two?